Before we get going here, just like always, I want to thank everybody in the organization. You know, our scouts, our coaches, our medical team. Just everybody. Dr. Carr in our sports psychology department, the equipment guys, Adam in nutrition. I mean, there's just so many people that are a part of this. I know I'm missing guys as we go through this, but it's such a team effort, and we had a great 3 days. Feel really good about it, and just really, really excited about what we were able to do. But there was a lot of hard work, and those guys really nailed it this weekend. So really appreciative of that.
Drafts are busy, but 13 players. Matt was just saying he's never had a class with this many. Can you describe what the last 3 days, especially the day with 9, were like in that room?
I loved it for a number of reasons, but sitting there for long periods of time, watching players come off the board is tough. And then this particular day, we really didn't have to. We didn't have big waits. We had enough picks. That 4th to 5th round, I think, was our longest wait. So there's always there's more players you love up there than you're able to take. So knowing that you had a pick coming up each and every so many picks was nice. So it was really nice. So yeah, I think it's going to create great competition. I think we have great opportunity on our roster. I liked it. I've always kind of been the more the better. I think there's been times in the past where we've been pretty close to this, maybe 11, 12, 13. Again, it was there's always times I think in different drafts where maybe you look to move out of some of those picks if you can get next year's picks. I didn't really feel that way this year. I always thought there was players for us to pick. And God bless you. And also just the fact that I think right now we're with compensatory picks and things, we're probably going to end up with about 11 or more picks next year. So,
Brian, it's not a draft question, but since the deadline's coming up, are you going to pick up Jordan's 5th-year option?
Yeah, I got to figure that out by Tuesday, I guess. Yeah, but we're kind of still working through that. We've been so focused on the draft. We've had some preliminary conversations, but we'll get to that before Tuesday.
What would be the reason not to?
Again, I got to get through that. There's, it's a lot of money for a guy who hasn't, played, but at the same time, obviously, we're moving forward with him, so we'll figure that out by Tuesday.
Is it end of day Tuesday or end of day Monday?
Pretty sure it's end of day Tuesday. Probably 3 o'clock for us usually. Yeah. Don't quote me. I'm not 100% pretty sure of that.
Hey, Brian, the other day you mentioned subconsciously need factors in when you're stacking your board. You can't avoid it.
Yep.
So subconsciously, or maybe just consciously, did you go in saying, I got to get this kid a bunch of weapons? I mean, 6 offensive skill positions, that's the most you've ever done by double.
Yeah, it was a really interesting year. I'm sure there's part of that. I think certainly I talked last night that was one of our goals, was to add some pass catchers and some skill players. I also think we probably had a very, very deep group of offensive linemen. You guys know how I like to take offensive linemen. We weren't able to do that in this draft. So I did think because of the depth of our group right now that once we got past a certain point on the board, making this football team was going to be difficult on the offensive line. So, which I think opened up spots, for some of those skill positions. But yeah, I think certainly that was a goal of ours. Again, you never know how it's going to fall, but it felt good for us. So.
What was it that you liked about Carlson, and what does this mean for Mason Crosby moving forward?
Yeah, so first of all, I praised Mason up here a bunch and what he's done for our organization, and we're never going to close the door on that. But he was a kicker that Rich has extensive experience with. He had his brother and has known him for quite a while. He struggled through some injuries here over the past couple of years after a very promising start. So we felt really good about where he was headed, and again, I think the relationship there that Rich had him was a positive factor for us picking him.
You said you took off the brace for the combine. How much did that combine performance maybe reassure you, or was that a big factor?
It was helpful, yeah, for sure. Again, I think Rich spent some time with him down in Auburn as well, and again, he was a guy that I think the familiarity there probably helped more than if we wouldn't have had that.
Ryan, staying with the kicker, he was 91% from inside of 40, 53% from outside. Those numbers worry you a little bit? That's a pretty big discrepancy.
Yeah, I think if you go back and really study it, as he worked through the ACL and the shoulder and some of the different injuries he had, it made us feel better of why. But at the same time, he's got to stay healthy too, right? So that's going to be part of it. But again, I think with kickers, I think Rich is a long track record and very successful one, and I felt really good about how he felt about that guy. So,
I'm sorry. What was the thinking about the two defensive linemen, just as far as their physical skill set? They're not, they're not Dean Lowry, Jaron Reed, 300-pound guys,
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly Brooks is, he's up there in the 300-pound range, but pass rushers, right? I mean, both those guys have extensive skill set to rush the passer, production to rush the passer. So, again, we've talked about versatility up here with those guys. I think they're able to go up and down the line of scrimmage and rush the passer, and I think that was another kind of goal for us.
Looking at just sort of the common denominator for all those defensive guys, is speed the name of the game now?
Yeah, I was Sam Seal likes to say speed kills, right? So back to his Raider days. But yeah, I mean, I think athleticism, speed, quickness. I mean, a lot of it goes into it. But certainly, I think the guys that we took on defense in this particular draft, they have that.
The 3 receivers you took last year all kind of had different skills, different body types. What about the 3 this year? Any differences, similarities? What do you think of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, the guys we took, later today are bigger, stronger. Guys probably a little more typical of the guys we take. Jaden was obviously, he's a little bit on the slighter side, but at the same time, when you watch him win contested balls again and again and again, we felt better about that. But I think in Matt's offense, since Matt's gotten here, one of the criteria that's always been important, but maybe stressed more here is the ability to get after it in the run game and blocking. And so I certainly think that that's become something we're more in tune to since Matt's gotten here.
Going off of Cassidy's question, I feel like versatility is the buzzword these days. Why was that so important with this team's draft class? It feels like every single player has been described as versatile.
We've kind of been doing that for quite a bit the last few years. And I think, and this goes back to Ted probably more than anybody, but you really never know what's going to happen during a season. And with the injuries and as long as our season is and as many injuries as we go through, guys got to be able to do multiple things, because if you kind of stack your roster with guys that are, singular that way and they get hurt, other guys can't come over and do what they do. So, Ted was really big on well-rounded football players that could do multiple things. We've continued to be, and it's served us well as we've gone the last few years.
Brian, what were the traits you liked in Clifford? And do you think you can get by without having a veteran NFL guy that's played in this league in that room?
Sure. I'll answer your second question first. So we'll kind of see how that goes, but we really like, what he brings to the table. Obviously, he started a lot of games in the Big Ten, has a lot of experience, really good athlete, liked his arm talent. And we brought him in for a pre-draft visit and just, really, liked the makeup of the person. So, but yeah, I think, we've talked a little bit about here as we've, moved to Jordan, just about what we did when we moved from Brett to Aaron and when we went with Brian Brom and Matt Flynn. So, I like that room right now, and all those guys need reps. So I think we'll probably see how these guys do before we would think about bringing in a veteran right away.
Ryan, you mentioned pre-draft visits. How do you view those? Van Ness said he didn't really know you guys even had that much interest in them. You brought in 3 tight ends, right? And Luke wasn't one of them.
Right.
How do you view those at the top of the draft, like smokescreen opportunities or more information opportunities?
Yeah.
And then how do you view them in the back end, because you tend to take a lot of guys that you have in visits?
Yeah. So I think it's really case by case. I think as we go through, certainly there's a number of guys that are non-combine guys that we would like to bring in to get a physical on. That's very important for us. So there's a bunch of those guys. And then, really I think with a lot of guys, if we kind of get to a certain point where we feel really, really good and everything's lining up and there's not a lot of questions there, we don't really feel a need to bring them in. If we've had exposures to them, at all-star games, the combine, maybe just – everything added up through the fall for our guys, and there was really no discrepancies. And then maybe it could be a medical thing. It could be just maybe, hey, we wanted to see how he fits in with our coaching staff and how he might fit into the room. So there might be some character things that we really want to work through in a one-on-one basis. So there's a lot of different reasons. I think, in my time prior to me taking over for Ted, we were really heavy on the undrafted free agents. We thought from obviously the medical part of it, but also from a recruiting aspect, having them in the building and seeing this place really helped us. We still believe that. But I also think that, there's times where, answering 1 or 2 questions on certain things can help you make a decision.
Brian, what did you see from Johnson after moving to safety this past year? How do you weigh that when a guy, basically spends 4 years at one spot and then you get that 1 year of seeing him at the...
Again, we go back to the versatility we're talking about a little bit, but I think the one thing that really sold us on him is just the, he was as top of football character as you could possibly get, the way they talk about him there. And it was, that was one of those fun phone calls to make just because we knew the wiring is exactly what we're looking for.
When you hear those phone calls, Brian, what do you get from those guys? Is it anxiousness? Is it excitement, relief?
It's a little all over the map at times, and I'm usually trying to get off as fast as I can because we usually have, especially today because we had picks coming up, right? And we actually had to get 2 phones going there when we had those 2 picks close together like that. But a lot of crying, a lot of noise in the background, usually families and screaming, and a lot of celebration. And this is a big moment for these guys, and a really cool moment. And for me, it's cool to be part of it. I actually wish I could hang on the phone a little longer and experience more of it, but it's tough. As we're working through the day, I get a lot of my guys will send me videos. I guess in the world today, all these things are getting videoed, and we saw one from Tucker Kraft and Jaden Reed. It's just you see that, and you realize how hard these guys have worked to get to this moment, and how many people in their lives helped them to get to that moment, and they're all celebrating. And it's just a cool moment for those guys. You wish, for my end of it, you wish you had a little bit more time to experience that with them a little bit more, but you really don't because you got so much going on. But it's a big deal. When you get late in the 7th round, sometimes and there's so many, these phone calls going on that it's always interesting because there can be some confusion at times, But we were lucky today. We all got them on the phone. And, it can be a little anxious when all of a sudden you can't get them on the phone. And you listen to the old scouts talk about back in the day where guys were hiding guys out in hotel rooms and no cell phones, and it's pretty funny. But it's a lot easier today.
Maybe a little bit along those lines, Brian. What was the conversation like with Dubose? I'm sure you know his story. His 2020 got canceled, and he's working like 4 jobs. Obviously, maybe the moment means more to him, but I guess can you go through that and maybe does the backstory matter at all?
It always does. The backstory on all these guys matters. I think I've talked before up here at times about like when we go through investigating these guys, you really do want to see what adversity have they had in their lives and how did they overcome it. And for me, it makes me feel much better when they have overcome some adversity, some significant adversity, because they're going to experience that here, And so yeah, there, a lot of noise on that phone call, and I always turn it over to Matt, and he gets to spend a little bit more time with them, and our coaches do. But it was one of those ones that we get to that. It's 4 minutes, and I think we called him with like 2 minutes on the phone, and then I'm trying to get off to give it to Matt, and I'm just so I can tell him to turn the pick in, and. But yeah, no, it was good. They're all good phone calls, but the backstories on all these guys really do matter for us because the guys we're putting into this locker room matter. We take that pretty serious, and so we spend a lot of time on it.
Brian, you entered the draft with a big question mark at starting safety, and you didn't draft one until the 7th round. Did you have to go in? It was a weaker safety class. Did you go in knowing that might not get addressed in this draft?
Yeah, a little bit. We signed some guys, before the draft, some veteran guys, and brought back Rudy and things, so just to kind of, and Dallin and DeVarius and stuff. So I think we did some things, kind of knowing this class wasn't maybe as deep as some. There were some guys up there that we really liked, and we were really, really excited about, what we were able to get to the end of the day. But I think we kind of thought that might be the case, and that's kind of the way we went.
I know you were already asked about it this weekend, but now that it's over and you don't have an apparent starting safety from this class, is Adrian going to be someone that you give a call?
Yeah, I think, we're not going to close the door on that. Obviously, Adrian's done such a nice job for us over the last 4 years, and we've been in communication with him along the way, so we'll see where that goes. But as we've talked about many times, and here it's 365, right? So, like, today's a great day. These last 3 days, I think we've really had a chance to help our football team, and I think we did. And we'll enjoy this tonight, but as we get going tomorrow, we're going to be signing some rookie minicamp guys, and then start looking at what's out there on the veteran open market, and continue to move forward. And if we can make our team better, we're gonna do that. So, but yeah, Adrian, he's played at a high level for a long time, played at a high level for us last year, so. We wouldn't close the door on that yet.
I'm curious about a process thing here. So how often does the board really decide who you're picking? I'm thinking about the top of that second round. And the 2 tight ends go back to back. I could see getting nervous and worrying that you're gonna lose Luke or not have the tight end you want. And then you juxtapose that with what you did after that, where you traded back twice because you felt so strong about your board. Just what's it like in the room on either end of that spectrum? And maybe what are the challenges for you as a GM not to jump and trade up or give up an asset to get a guy and stay patient?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, and you lose guys, right? I mean, you know, gosh, we were talking about it today. There was, you know, I don't know, probably 10 years ago or something, there was a draft that I want to say 3 times during the draft, the guy that Ted was going to pick got picked the pick before us. You know what I mean? And you always, you know, as you're going through it, you always have, you know, okay, if I'm going to go here, going to go here, going to go here. But you got to listen to your board. You got to know where it's strong. I mean, if you're going to move back, you got to feel you got enough guys to take. You know, there was times, I mean, with Sean Clifford today, I mean, you know, there was a quarterback run, and a lot of quarterbacks underneath him went. And so as we looked at it, we had a number of choices up there that were all kind of the same, but there wasn't really any quarterbacks after him that we felt, you know, really strongly about like we did him. So that made it easy. You know what I mean? So because, you know, there was other positions where we're like, hey, if we miss out on this guy, we got some other guys we like, right? So you got to listen to it and try to, you know, at times you got to figure out how to move to where it's strong. We had so many picks today. I kind of went into it thinking that unless we were going to get significant, you know, picks in 2024, we were going to stay and pick. And that's kind of how it fell. And you know, so, but yeah, you got to, I think that's important to kind of look at it and see where it is and understand that.
After 256, did you have any names left on the board?
Oh, we got all kinds of names up there. Yeah, no. So you know, you got kind of the, you know, some teams call it their front board and back board. We don't really do that. But yeah, there's, you know, it's the amount of names that these guys go through a fall and spring is you know, pretty enormous. So you know, they're rated at all different levels, and we have a rookie mini camp coming up too. So it's yeah, there's always names up there. I will say when you get down to it, you know, this undrafted free agency is a chaotic, pretty neat time, but you know, we'll come back in tomorrow, start looking up there, and it's there's always a few guys. Oh, I can't believe he's still out there, and you know, you invite him to rookie mini camp, and you get excited about that. So there's as much energy and juice in the UDFA signings as any of these draft picks at times. You know what I mean? Because these guys work, you know, so hard to get to that point. When they were able to do that, it's a big deal. So and as you guys know, we've had some guys come out of those things that have been really good players for us. So yeah, it's a very exciting time for our football team.